when teams come together across the organization to deliver on a business critical project, right? And they have to work in a certain way, in an agile fashion, together. We can actually correlate the design of the workspace to the eventual project outputs in the time that it's delivered, as well as the impact that it has on the customers.
Welcome to the Team Around the Table podcast, where we explore the challenges that are informing corporate real estate today with industry leaders and our clients. I am Despina Katsikakis, Global Head of Total Workplace Consulting for Cushman and Wakefield, and I'm delighted to be in Singapore today and be joined by Sheela Parakkal, who is Regional CHRO for Prudential PLC, and Carol Wong, who is Regional Head for Total Workplace Consulting and has been working with Sheela on the transformation of the Prudential offices here. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Delighted to be here today.
Well, it's a very exciting time for real estate because the whole language of real estate has been changing, Sheela, to focus on people. And it's all been really accelerated in the last few years. How do we design spaces that actually drive employee engagement, support employee well-being, create environments that inspire people to want to come into the office? In fact, what's really interesting for us is that over the past couple of years, about 30% of our clients, the CRO function, now reports into the CHRO instead of the CFO, which they typically reported into. Now, I know at Prudential, CRE does not report into you, but you have set up a process to really create a very seamless, integrated way of working together.
That's right.
Your well-being ecosystem sounds just a wonderful way to describe real estate and people coming together. How did you come up with that and why?
I think most of us spend many hours at work, more so sometimes than home. But when we are at our workplace, and that too coming in every day with an intention to fulfill our purpose, the organization purpose, to make a difference, to create an impact, it's so important that I feel that I can be myself. I can be surrounded by my colleagues who also are like-minded. I have an environment where I have me time versus team time. And I also am able to be productive in the way that the organization sees that I should show up. Now, in the past, to do all of this, it was seen as two distinct disciplines, i.e., HR, you take care of the people matters, you onboard people, you evaluate people, and unfortunately, in some instances, exit people. And dear real estate, you just find us the space to work. Now, that's a very, I would say, dated approach to looking at what essentially is optimizing workforce performance at work. So at Prudential, we've come up with the well-being ecosystem, which essentially has 4 pillars. The first pillar is around how do we create a safe environment for our people to show up? How do we design work in such a way that it is utilizing synchronous, asynchronous time? How do we create a workplace where people feel that they belong and are able to be themselves? And finally, of course, to make this entire ecosystem click, how do we promote self-leadership? Because it's actually about the people themselves. How have we managed to do all of this without reporting lines? I think it's down to a common denominator, i.e., who are our customers? Our customers in the HR function are our people, and in real estate, who are your key occupants? It's our people. So once we kind of got very clear on who our intended customers in this conversation were, it was very clear that you didn't need reporting lines to make things work.
Amazing. In fact, the last time we spoke, you made a comment which has really stuck with me, which is that both real estate and HR should report to the people, which I think really resonates with what you just described. Focus on who is your customer and why are you delivering the service. You mentioned well-being as the core of your ecosystem definition. I think well-being is a really interesting area for us. And Carol, I think you've been tracking both employee experience at the workplace and well-being. Do you want to share with us some of that data and how it's been changing over the last year or two?
Our data have shown that the over experience and able to do the best work have rebounded surprisingly, but well-being remains low. And most importantly is that when we look at the category of employees with choice and no choice, there's a significant difference where employees who have choice on locations and schedules has higher experience score versus those who does not have. But one thing that's worrying is that the young generations has the lowest well-being score among all the generation that we have in the workforce. So I think that's why the well-being topic becomes really a centerpiece of what we're trying to do for them.
This issue of choice and the impact that having choice of where you work and when you work can have, both on employee experience, on your ability to do your best work, and on well-being, being so fundamental and particularly impacting younger people, makes me think of all the noise we hear about mandates, right? Everybody's talking about mandates. You know, how many days are you going to tell people they have to be back in the office? And we've tracked in the past over the last couple of years that with mandates, you often see a little bit of an uptick in utilization of space, but a decline on engagement, usually because they lack intentionality. Mm-hmm. Leaders will say, we want you to be here 4 days a week, but they don't actually respond to those younger generations who want to have choice, but they also want to come in because they want to be mentored and they want to build their networks and grow their careers. Sheela, what's your experience with mandates and this whole dilemma?
It's a very sensitive topic with me. But you're right, it's topical and it's something that is being considered at every organization post-pandemic, essentially. So my experience has been that we have the range in Prudential because, you know, we're a global organization. We have parts of our organization which still chooses to give the choice to employees because it's seen to be an important part of delivering on performance, right? And therefore engaging exactly the segment that you spoke about. And in different parts of our organizations, our leaders have adopted a view that it is absolutely critical that everyone shows up and is seen in the office. Now, of course, just purely to be seen, back to your point, it's not good enough, right? We don't no longer live in an era of presenteeism. It is really about showing up, doing good work, and delivering on performance. So, you know, I've also had instances of leaders who have gone down the path of a mandate, but I guess what I'd like to distinguish is how this specific leader that I have in mind has chosen to maybe not just look at it as show up, but how he has chosen to use the time that people are in the office. So he's been very actively engaging, not a small team, but different segments of his team through what he calls skip-level conversations. And you know, we all know with the younger generation that level of engagement with senior leadership, the ability to be heard, the ability to contribute right at the top is critical. So while on one hand, the mandate sounds kind of, you know, he shouldn't be doing it, but how he's using the time translates to engagement, which is absolutely critical.
That's amazing. That's a great example of using intentionality, but also the role of leadership, where you started earlier, that it's not about just the space. It's not just about the work process, but it is the leadership, belief, and behavior. And what's fascinating about what you described is that it kind of taps into very specifically what the changing purpose of the office is. Now, Carol, maybe you can share with us a little bit of what we have seen through the data be the top reasons that people really still want to come to the office.
Definitely. I think what Sheela just mentions is exactly the top 5 purpose in the 1 hour research. Collaborations, company culture, well-being, balance, technologies, and social connections, the top 5 purpose. I think one thing that it actually shows is that people want to start to feel belong again in the organizations. And that is important for them to retain and attract the talents in the organizations. I remember, Despina, you told me that in one of the research that you have seen before is if people actually have friends in the organization, they tend to actually stay longer.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think that's absolutely important.
Absolutely. I suppose the interesting piece is, on one hand, we clearly are hearing that people want to come to the office for people.
Yes.
On the other hand, we're still designing office environments predominantly for individual work. So we're seeing this tension where the office has not really evolved to support new working practices. Sheela, you said you're balancing synchronous and asynchronous work, which is so important in terms of the enablement that technology provides us today. But Carol, do you think environments have been designed to support?
No, if not, I will not have a job anymore, I think. But I truly think today, the reason why the utilization continues to be low, even the mandates were given or the leaders have pushed really hard, was the space was not designed to fit the intention of the purpose. Make the experience is such a good way for them that the employees felt that it's a worth investment of their time and resources to come back. And they will naturally come back again. Yeah. When organizations get it right, I'm sure Prudential, Sheela can talk about the new office that she just moved in. That will naturally get people to come back again and again and again.
I was just going to say, so we're recording on a Friday. Usually the traffic flow on a Friday is low in the office. So we've just moved into our spanking new premises, working with you guys in terms of the design, etc. And I definitely saw more people than I've seen on a Friday ever. And this is largely because you can see people coming together. It is Friday after all, having social connections.
Yeah.
There are people still doing their own work and in calls, essentially getting connected with their colleagues across the group. And then there are little quiet corners where people are just finishing off for the week. So just today as an example, I think it kind of drives home the fact about the importance of how the workplace caters to or is thoughtful about the needs of the employee.
That's very, very important, isn't it? And when you say the needs of the employee, there are obvious elements that are functional, and there are much subtler elements. I'm prodding you because you shared with me a lovely example of what happened in your new office that I think our listeners would like to hear.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely delighted with this experience. I had just about finished my first or second meeting for the day, and it was taken from my workstation, and it's not an allocated workstation. We are on flexible seating. And I was walking towards a meeting room for my next meeting. Clearly the morning hadn't gone as planned, and walking into my third meeting for the morning, let's just say I wasn't in the best of spirits, right? So I walk into the meeting room, and obviously it's the lights are sensor driven. Now what I've experienced in the past is the minute you walk into a meeting room, the light just comes out at you, much like, the Spanish Inquisition, one might say, basically. But walking into this room, and the light just turned on so subtly until it got to a stage where I had actually calmed down. And when the light was absolutely at its maximum, which was still subtle, I was ready for my next meeting. Now, one might not even notice it, but the fact that that level of details had been looked into to ensure that anyone entering the room would be put in the right frame of mind to tackle the next challenge, I think is just phenomenal.
What I love about that example is that it really shows how the workplace can be designed to engender the right type of behavior in obvious and in subtle ways.
Yes.
And increasingly, of course, we're recognizing that we're all different. We talk about neurodiverse design, but we're all diverse in our needs. And the ability of the environment to adapt to our personal requirements and our requirements throughout the day, which will also be different, is so fundamental in ensuring that our ability to deliver our best work through the office.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Sheela, I know you've just moved into a brand new office, and it'd be really interesting, given that your office before was very much designed around agile working and very focused on belonging. What was your vision for this new environment?
I guess it's the organizational view that the workplace is meant to bring alive what the company stands for. Whether it's our purpose, it's our values, our ways of working, every corner of the office should demonstrate and help our employees and our other stakeholders experience this on an everyday basis. So that philosophy did not change when we were thinking about our new office and premise. Now, of course, coming into a new location, it was really important that it would be perceived to be as good, if not better. And if we then asked ourselves questions around what could be that incremental piece, having been in our past premise for about 6 years, there was 3 very simple words that came to everyone's mind when it came to thinking about the new office. It is, how would we help our people not just survive, but thrive in the office premises? How would people come in and feel connected and feel like they belong to a tribe? And more importantly, when you are thriving and you're part of a tribe, surely you must be inspired to do what's right for your customer.
I love the fact that you described that the office, the role of the workplace, is to bring to life your culture and values.
Absolutely.
And the reason why I love the way you describe that is that I always say to clients that your workplace is always communicating
It is.
your culture and values.
Yes.
You can choose to actually drive what it communicates, which is exactly what you've been doing, or you can ignore it, but it's still giving messages and engendering behaviors
All the time.
that build that culture and values. So, Carol, how did you bring that to life?
I think that with the very clear vision and purpose that Prudential has set, it makes our life really exciting, because what we actually study is really go into how each persona use the space differently every day. We'll always tend to think about specific persona to have a standard day in their life. But in fact, we always say that it has changed with changing needs. So every space was curated with multiple purpose. We really curate the experience to fit different profile or different demographic. So I think that really helped us to bring that together in the new spanking office.
And one of the things, if I recall correctly, that you've also focused on is how you effectively bring agile teams together. Tell us a little bit more about that, Sheela.
So, much like many organizations, we are going through transformation. What we stand for, what are the businesses that are going to be key to our brand as we move forward, etc. And to really get to the end outcome of these transformational projects, it's going to take people from every part of the organization. The need to bring people in large numbers, to be able to move at pace, to be executing on what needs to be delivered, does require a rethink around how you use space. And how do you create a level of not so much urgency, but energy around wanting to show up for work, be part of this tribe, deliver milestones, deal with challenges together was paramount, because that's pretty much how we've been successful all these years. So leveraging the workplace and leveraging the design and getting people to like really show up was, I think, a primary design feature that we were looking at.
So aligning it not just to the people, but to the work process
Absolutely.
itself. Very, very important. Having worked with an organization like Prudential, who really creates this seamless integration with a focus on people and well-being, what would be a couple of takeaways from you?
I think the first one is really getting the leadership alignment in terms of what visions that it works for the company and the people, so that we could actually curate that specifically. And secondly is really understand what people's needs, right? And be able to actually decipher what is the needs and wants, so that we could actually make very deliberate and intentional investment on where do we prioritize. I think third one really is to really look at integrating the workflow and the design, because it's not just places that we build, but how can we actually get people to work effectively throughout the entire day, different type of businesses.
Sheela, how can a CRE executive work effectively with their CHRO? What would be your guidance to help them bridge that gap that's often perceived in organizations?
Lots is what I'll start with. A CRE, I mean, the work that you guys do in the CRE space has changed dramatically from the time I joined the workforce 30 years ago. So maybe the first thing, the invitation to all CRE executives is engage your people leaders and bring them up to speed as to what's evolved in your workspace, and ensure your touch points are just not to discuss the nuts and bolts of how much space do you need, and how much is it going to cost, because the thought that is going into the workplace design and how it's meant to serve the customer is tremendous. So maybe that's step one. Find an opportunity to educate your HR colleagues, your people colleagues about what you're doing. Number two, I think Carol explained it really well. Understand what the organization's up to from a people and culture mandate, because the space that you own, curate, and manage is an amazing conduit to bring all of that alive. So to understand that and then to be able to bring it to life, I think is entirely in your hands as well. And finally, I'm not naive. There's always cost considerations around real estate. My invitation is to pivot the conversations from cost to value, and really educating business leaders in the process around how the work that you do is actually valuable in driving the strategy and culture of the organization.
That's incredibly valuable advice, can I say, because one of the things that you're beginning to describe in that is how we can map the workforce journey to the real estate journey more effectively. And I love the piece around going from cost to value, because ultimately most significant expenditure of the organization is on people. Yes. So if we can really begin to create metrics that matter, that really demonstrate how place can enhance the productivity, the well-being, the business outcomes that people can create, we really can create a very powerful synergy between those two areas of the business.
Absolutely. And if I can just give an example of potential metric. When teams come together across the organization to deliver on a business critical project, right? And they have to work in a certain way, in an agile fashion, together. It's actually, we can actually correlate the design of the workspace to the eventual project outputs in the time that it's delivered. as well as the impact that it has on the customer.
That's super interesting, because one of the metrics that we've been exploring with some clients is beginning to articulate and measure the value of a productive hour.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's not going to be the same in different parts of the business. But to your example, it begins to then show you the scale of impact you can make, even with adjusting lighting, temperature, natural light, all of the aspects that help us, back to your vision, thrive.
Yes.
And enhance your experience. Well, this has been very, very inspiring conversation, and I am very thrilled to have had the opportunity of having a CHRO join a corporate real estate discussion. So thank you both for joining the team around the table.
Thank you very much for having me. Never thought I'd be in a corporate real estate podcast. So clearly we're in it together.
My pleasure is to be here as well.
Lovely. Thank you both, and thank you for being our team around the table.